Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. And today's one is one I've been waiting to do for a bit now. A very fun 2023 player evaluation. Today we're evaluating Orion Kerkering, an absolutely meteoric rise from low A ball at the start of the year to being on the NLCS roster for the Philadelphia Phillies. Whew. Imagine that. What a fun season it must have been. Unprecedented one in Philadelphia Phillies history. And we're going to break it all down on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm Connor Thomas, your host. Thank you so much for checking us out. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that you know helps us out here at Locked On Phillies. By the way, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you so much for joining us today. And it's a very fun episode because today we're going to be evaluating Orion Kerkering. Yes, the young stud out of the bullpen for the Philadelphia Phillies in the late part of the 2023 season. He came out of nowhere. Nobody had any idea who this kid was until you started to hear rumors in September that, they might actually call him up to the major leagues. There might be this guy coming out of AAA or wherever. Was he even called up from AAA? He might have come from AA straight up. No, I think he did make it to AAA because his picture here on Baseball Reference, I'm just looking. It looks like it's with the Threshers is what the hat is there, which is a single A team for the Philadelphia Phillies down there in Florida. He is a Florida guy originally, and that's where he started his season. Like, it is miraculous that we even know Orion Kerkering's name right now. I also figured out something from his Baseball Reference page. Like, this is how little we know about him. So, his first name is actually Richard, and Orion's his middle name, but goes by Orion, and Orion Kerkering it is. So let's evaluate his 2023 season. And this is a fun one, right? Because I know he had moments in the postseason, especially in that series against the Arizona Diamondbacks, where he was not sharp at all. He looked like a 22-year-old that was out there. By the way, yes, 22 years of age. He was born, you ready to feel old? He was born on April 4th of 2001. So to all the folks out there who are about my age, I'm 29. To hear someone born in 2001 is not only like a functioning adult, but pitching for a Major League Baseball team. And it's insane. We had the same conversation with Yohan Rojas about the age thing. But Rojas is a guy, you've heard his name for years in the Phillies minor league system. If you look at prospects at all, it's been a couple years where Rojas had been mentioned because of his rangy athletic ability. Kerkering was not remotely on the radar for the Philadelphia Phillies fan base, at least. But it seems like he got on the radar pretty early for the Philadelphia Phillies organization. So we're going to talk about his path to the major leagues coming up. And I'm going to talk you through a little bit about how he possibly could have gone from low A ball to pitching in the NLCS over the course of one season, but just evaluating his 2023 season. Here's something that you need to understand. I understand he had his rough spots in the postseason. He also had a point where he was pitching in a 2-run game in the 7th inning against the Atlanta Braves in the NLDS, and he had a shutout inning. Like, that's nails. There aren't dudes just doing that, even at the major league level. And he's doing it in his first couple months up in the majors after starting the season in low A. Like, he's not this guy that was, we're going to absolutely have Orion Kerkering come up at some point this year, or he's popped up and popped down for the past couple seasons and we don't know how he fits in, but maybe if we need something because of injury. So no, this guy was a nobody 4 months ago. And the next thing you know, he's having big time outings against the Atlanta Braves in the postseason. So does he have the ability to be a really, really good reliever at the major league level? Absolutely. Now, I do sports talk radio. That is my full-time job over at 97.5 The Fanatic. You can go ahead and check it out. I would love it if you did, if you're in the market or if you want to pop on the app for that. And you can listen to me talk about this all the time. And I heard a caller one time on our radio station say, I can't wait to see Orion Kerkering as a starter. He's not going to be a starter, folks. Orion Kerkering is not going to be a major league level starter. He's up there because he's a major league level bullpen piece, and he's going to continue to be that for the 2024 season. But he's proven that at age 22, he's already a capable major league reliever. And relievers have a long, long shelf life. A lot of these guys pitch to the mid-30s, late 30s. He's probably got a good 13 to 15-year career ahead of him as long as he continues on this path. Now, that's projecting out far too much, but my point is, you saw in 2023 that the kid has composure. The kid absolutely has stuff, and he belongs at this level. It wasn't he came up and we're experimenting something and he looks like he stinks. No, if he did, he wouldn't be on the NLCS roster. And I know he struggled in the NLCS. You know who else struggled in the NLCS? Lock Hall of Famer Craig Kimbrell. Gregory Soto, who's been an all-star multiple times. Like, there were guys that didn't look good in spots across the board for the Philadelphia Phillies at points in the NLCS. They didn't have the best series. So it's not like it's all on Orion Kerkering or even mostly on Orion Kerkering. Like, it's not remotely his fault that the Philadelphia Phillies are sitting at home. He had a very small role to play. He didn't do his best job in the NLCS, but like, could you expect him to in that spot? That's what this season was for Orion Kerkering. It was a season of unexpected. And that's something that makes good teams great, is when you get unexpected boons from players that weren't on the roster, you didn't expect to contribute much, stuff like that. So evaluating his 2023 season is easy. It's a absolute grand slam home run for Orion Kerkering. To go from not contributing anything to anybody, like low A ball, to contributing in any level for the major league club in the same season automatically gets you an A++++ in my book. Like, it has to. And you see why he made the meteoric rise that he did when you look at the type of stuff he has and the composure he has. He didn't at all look like, I'm talking about his physical look. He looked rattled a little bit in the NLCS from his performance, but his composure, you didn't really see it in his face. It didn't seem like the moment was too big for him. It seemed like he's just not as battle tested, right? He's a new recruit. These other guys have gone through the wars of multiple Major League Baseball seasons, and they're veterans of the game. He's not. So that's going to naturally be a tough spot for him to be in, but I don't think it was an issue. Like, remember when Ranger Suarez first started to pop on the scene for the Philadelphia Phillies at the major league level, and everyone's like, this guy's expressionless? I do kind of see a little bit of that in Orion Kerkering as well, which is something you like to have for a guy coming out of the bullpen that needs to be in big, big spots. So I can't sing his praises enough when it comes to the 2023 season. And we didn't see much of him, right? In the regular season for Orion Kerkering, he did have one win in the regular season, but he only pitched in 3 games in the regular season. 3 innings pitched, allowed 3 hits, 1 run, 1 earned, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, faced 14 batters. So you're like, Connor, how are you evaluating all of this off of 14 batters? Well, that's the regular season. He also pitched in the postseason. And sometimes you can kind of just tell by the stuff that a guy has, like whether or not he has it. And I think Orion Kerkering has it. Coming up, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about his, like, how he got from low A ball to the majors. And it'll tell you a little bit more about why I think that this guy is a special reliever, or at least has the opportunity to be a special reliever for the Philadelphia Phillies in the future. So we're going to get into that coming up as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. First, though, I want to tell you about my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. You can score this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. So what does that mean? Well, you bet $5 on any team to win. They have a matchup. They got a game. They're playing somebody. You say, okay, I got 5 on it that this team's going to win. And if that team does, you'll get $150 in bonus bets. You'll get that right into your FanDuel account. You can use that to bet on other stuff. And man, do they have other stuff to bet on. Like if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action because you can spend that $150 in bonus bets on a whole bunch of different things. You can bet the spread, how much a team's going to win by. You can bet over-unders, the points in the game. You can bet player props. Is this guy going to score? Is that guy going to score? Is this guy going to have a turnover? Stuff like that. You can bet all kinds of things like that. And if you want to bet them all together, you can parlay them for an even bigger payout. FanDuel has everything you could have ever dreamed of when it comes to sports betting. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make some money this NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, so here's where we've got to understand Orion Kerkering's path to the majors. How did he get here? Well, first off, he throws gas. That's the number one way that you can elevate yourself quickly in the modern day, like in modern day baseball. If you throw hard, if you have good velocity, if you have good spin rate, they're going to find a way to get you to the major leagues. And Orion Kerkering throws hard. Upper 90s, effortless delivery. He's 6'2", 200, so he's not a small guy, but he's also not like one of the huge – he's not Taijuan Walker, like a huge-bodied guy like that. So that's how you stand out, right, by throwing gas. And that's what the Phillies have built their bullpen around. That's why Jose Alvarado's here. That's why Gregory Soto's here. That's why Sir Anthony Dominguez is valuable. It's why Matt Strahm – like they have a bunch of guys – and Matt Strahm's not the hardest thrower, but all of these guys – Jeff Hoffman throws hard. Like all of these guys can throw gas. And that's kind of the modern bullpens. Like we're just going to try and throw 99 by you, and we're also going to have plus off speed stuff. So the first step to getting noticed is, okay, this kid throws hard. That might get you to single, like might get you to high A ball, might get you to double A. It's very hard unless you're throwing like 102, 103, which Orion Kerkering is not, to get from low A to the majors just based on velocity alone. You have to have velocity and control. Now, I think Orion Kerkering showed a little bit of lack of control in the NLCS, but I think that was the moment. I think that was kind of the nerves a little bit, and it's natural that he's going to feel that, being that he only threw 3 innings in the regular season. The next thing you know, he's pitching big-time postseason innings for this team. So I expect him to be better in 2024 with that. I don't see him as a guy that is a command issue guy. Like Jose Alvarado at points in his career has been a command issue guy. Gregory Soto this year, command issue guy. Like those are guys that throw really hard gas from a really tough arm slot, and they can't always spot it. I don't see Orion Kerkering as like under or out of control, I should say, out there on the mound. So that's the other thing. In control of himself and his body, spotting, throwing upper 90s. Okay, check. All good. And that's where you get the attention of like, okay, we've got this guy rising through the minors that has some stuff, at least on that primary pitch. But is it his primary pitch? And that's where you really find a way to the major leagues in an outstanding way. Like, here's the thing. The path I'm describing doesn't exist because nobody does it. Nobody just comes out of nowhere doing this stuff. But imagine if a pitcher who had all of what I described already with the velocity and the ability to control his body and spot the pitches and everything like that. And the makeup that we talked about with Orion Kerkering seems to be a guy that has a good makeup for a relief pitcher, a good constitution, if you will. Throw in an absolutely dirty, ridiculous slider that nobody seems to be able to hit. Just the spin rate on is phenomenal. The movement on is phenomenal. It is a plus major league pitch. So he has, not only does he have upper 90s velocity, but he has a plus major league off-speed out pitch. That is how you get to the major league level. The 1-2 punch of Orion Kerkering's fastball and slider. Now, here's where the development needs to come. I think one of the issues with Orion Kerkering in the postseason is they fell in love with the slider. It was all he threw. Just slider every time. To the point where, like, there is no plus major league pitch that people can't hit. Maybe there's one. Juan Duran out in Minnesota throws like this 101 mile an hour splinker or splunker or whatever they call it, where it's like a split sinker. It's a devil's pitch and it's unhittable. Like you can know that one's coming, and I don't think there's any way you could get it. But think about Aroldis Chapman, even at his peak. I remember a game in the postseason where Aroldis Chapman pitched for the Reds against the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Phillies just teed off on him because as long as you know what's coming or have a general idea what's coming, it doesn't matter how plus that pitch is. There are major league hitters on the other side. So you got to be able to vary stuff. And I don't think the Phillies allowed him to vary up his pitching enough. I think it should be more fastball, less slider, but still a heavy diet of that good pitch. Like, you got to figure out the pitch balance. And I don't think they had that figured out with Orion Kerkering because I don't think they had enough sample size to trust Orion Kerkering's fastball in the spots they were in. I think he'll be much better with that in the 2024 season. And who knows? Maybe they'll develop a changeup. Like, that's the thing. Orion Kerkering is a guy that he did not have the benefit of coaching with this major league team. He just kind of came up and they're like, all right, kid, let's see what you got. And they're like, that's pretty darn good. Well, let's roll with it. Let's take a shot on you because you made it up here and you got 2 really good pitches, 1 outstanding one in the slider. But now, I imagine he's going to be on the team next year. I imagine he's going to have a spot in the majors next year. I mean, if you're on the NLCS roster at 22, I find it hard to believe they're sending you back down. So spring training, Caleb Cotham gets with it and says, hey, let's develop a changeup. Hey, let's work on spotting that fastball. Hey, let's see if at 22 you might have a little more velocity in you. Can we get you to triple digits? Maybe. There are other things that can be like grown upon for Orion Kerkering. So this is not a finished product. It's not like the kid you just saw is just how good he can be. No, that's how good he was just over the course of a year. Imagine more time with the Philadelphia Phillies at the major league level. And I know you want to develop players, but it's no secret. The best coaches are at the major league level. That's why they're there. So he's going to have better coaching. He's going to have more opportunities. He's going to build confidence. Like, Orion Kerkering is absolutely poised to have a much stronger 2024 because he's going to pitch more than 3 games, and he's going to have much better opportunity to learn from what he, like, I'm sure it was a whirlwind in the 2023 season. Like, you got to imagine. I just listed out all those things of how you go from low A ball to the majors, or at least how Orion Kerkering did it. And even that, it sounds like a fairy tale. That just doesn't happen. Guys don't progress that quickly through the minors ever. So I'm sure mentally it was tough for him to focus on. Like, when you're with a different team every month, you don't really settle into a rhythm. It'd be nice if he was with the Phillies all season next season so he could kind of settle into a rhythm and collect himself and know exactly what he's doing with this organization and know what his role is for this team. And we're going to talk about what his role could potentially be coming up in the final segment of today's episode. But I look at Orion Kerkering's path to the majors and I say it's so improbable that he kind of has to be good, right? You don't just, like, a major league organization, especially one like the Philadelphia Phillies with Dave Dombrowski at the helm when it comes to the roster decisions. John Middleton is the owner, a competitive team. Like, it's not like, all due respect to the teams I'm going to name, but like the Oakland Athletics or like, I don't know, the Pittsburgh Pirates still kind of in the basement, even though they look like they have a jump up. Sometimes teams like that will just call a prospect up late in the season to see what they've got because they're out of contention. No, this was a contending team that's thought we can win with this guy who started the season in low A ball. Making that decision kind of shows you that everyone trusts he has what it takes to pitch and pitch well at this level. And who am I to not believe the Philadelphia Phillies? They've made some really good roster decisions over the past couple of years. I'm going to continue to believe in their decisions. That's why I think Orion Kerkering is a star. And I also love that he's got such a cool name, and you can make star puns with it. But where does he fit into the plans for next season, for 2024? Well, Craig Kimbrell's departed. You're going to see some changes in the bullpen. It's a very interesting question. I'll give you my thoughts on it coming up as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On Phillies. So 2024 is going to be an interesting one for the Philadelphia Phillies bullpen. The guys that you know are back. You still got Soto, still got Strahm, Dominguez, Alvarado, Hoffman. You have a lot of guys back in the fold. The only guys that you're losing due to free agency are Michael Lorenzen, who you got at the trade deadline and was only barely in the bullpen, was a starter for a lot of this year in a Phillies uniform, and Craig Kimbrell, who you knew it was only a one-year deal, and a lot of folks wanted him gone by the time the season was over anyway because a lot of people blame him for the loss to the Diamondbacks in the NLCS. I don't totally fault you if you do. I think there's more to it than that, and the offense did not hold up their end of the bargain either. But I think Craig Kimbrell was awful in that series, and I understand the people who are like, good riddance. I don't ever want to hear about Craig Kimbrell again. But the fact of the matter is this. Michael Lorenzen didn't really have a concrete role in this pen because he wasn't here long enough to develop one. Craig Kimbrell was your closer, and he was used in multiple different spots too. He wasn't just used as like solely a closer role. He was also used in 6th, 7th, 8th inning. It bounced around a little bit. So now there's a lot of innings open for availability. Let's remember some things, because 2 years ago, when the Philadelphia Phillies made the run in to the World Series in 2022, Andrew Bellotti was kind of that guy that came out of nowhere. It's like, oh my God, this guy, how in the world did the Phillies find this guy? And then he kind of dropped off. Now, I'm not saying Orion Kerkering's that guy. I think Jeff Hoffman could be that guy, though. And we'll do an evaluation of Jeff Hoffman when we get to him and everything. I'll dive deeper into that. But Jeff Hoffman was this out-of-nowhere guy that the Phillies discovered because he was throwing to Bryce Harper when Bryce Harper was rehabbing. And they're like, Bryce Harper went to the organization, was like, yo, this guy's good. Like, he can get me out. We need to have him on the major league roster. And it ended up paying off big time. He's a talented player. So I'm not saying he'll drop off, but my point is, if you have another like Bellotti situation where it's a down year following a surprisingly good one, well, that's even more opportunity. Like, there's a lot of opportunity for Orion Kerkering as a right-handed reliever in this bullpen. So he will have a spot on the major league roster. I firmly believe that. Now, could Orion Kerkering be the closer in 2024? I don't see that as realistic. I don't. It would be too much to put on the kid's plate, and it would be too early to hand him the reins to a position like that. And also, Rob Thompson doesn't really have defined roles enough to that point, or at least he hasn't as manager of the Philadelphia Phillies. So I don't see him coming out and saying, oh, okay, Orion Kerkering is going to handle the closing responsibilities. I think it might be kind of a shift up the ladder. Like, think about it at work. Let's say you work in an office, and ahead of you, there's a manager. And ahead of that manager, there's a vice president. And ahead of that person, there's a president. Well, let's say the vice president bumps up. Well, then chances are the manager moves to the vice president role, and then you hire someone from the team to be the next manager, and you just bump up the ladder if you're hiring from within. I do think the Phillies will make a bullpen acquisition in free agency that's off-season, but I think Jeff Hoffman's going to move into not the Craig Kimbrell role, but I think he's going to move into like one of your top right-handed reliever roles. He might even overtake Sir Anthony Dominguez for the most trusted righty going into next season. He got to that point this year, but I mean, going in, he might have that. So I can see Orion Kerkering in kind of the Jeff Hoffman role. 6th, 7th innings, sometimes pressure spots, sometimes not. Sometimes get out there and get your work in duty. Sometimes, hey, we need something here because some guys are down. I'd see Orion Kerkering if I was ranking the arms in the Phillies bullpen right now. I'm looking at the righties. Hoffman's better, Dominguez better. I trust those guys more, even if Dominguez had a down year. He might be your third best righty reliever, and he might be in total. I'd put him behind Alvarado for sure. I'd put him behind Strahm. If Sanchez is in the bullpen, I'd put him behind Sanchez. Like, he's going to be one of your lower trusted arms, but he's going to be a guy that gets time, right? I think he's going to be like that what Jeff Hoffman was partway through the season, where it was like, we're going to use him here and there. He's going to throw about like twice a week, and we're going to see if he does something with the opportunity. That's what I see as Orion Kerkering's role in 2024. But that's a great thing, because that's another guy you don't have to go out and pay and get in free agency. You just developed that guy and found him in your own farm system. So that's a definite plus for the Philadelphia Phillies. And hey, if that guy is a guy with Orion Kerkering stuff that you trusted in big spots at points in the postseason this year, the more depth you can have in the bullpen, the better. That would be a good thing for the Phillies. So I'm very excited. He's one of my most look forward to seasons in 2024. So what does Orion Kerkering do? So it's fun. It's a fun time to be a Phillies fan. And it's because of the retool of the farm system. And the reason you do it is to find guys like Kerkering. So hopefully you agree with my evaluation there. If you don't, let me know in the comments. And also let me know in the comments of this episode who you want me to evaluate next. Who's the next player that you want me to check in on? A lot of bullpen guys we have not done yet. A lot of starters that we have not. We did Nola, we did Wheeler, we did Walker. I don't believe we did Ranger Suarez, and I don't believe we did Sanchez yet. So, yeah, we've got a playlist put together. I'll probably, at this point, tweet out something the next day or two from the Locked On Phillies account at LO_Phillies on Twitter, or you can check it out at Connor Thomas 975 over here in the graphic. That's my personal Twitter. I'll retweet it from that. I'll give you the full list of guys that we haven't done yet. I'll compile that to make sure I'm keeping track of everything there. But again, let me know in the comments of this episode who you want me to evaluate next following the evaluation of Orion Kerkering. That's all for today's episode. Thank you so much for checking us out. Again, please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to YouTube Locked On Phillies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'll talk to you next time on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.